Okay. We're live. Hello, everybody. Uh, as you probably know, I'm Derek. And I have my guest today and continuing my interviews with uh, a lot of people that have cubes coming to CubeCon for us to draft in the main event. This with me today is Chris. Say hello, Chris.
Hey everyone, I'm Chris, sometimes known as Mendicant on Discord, or on Twitter, Cube, but the last cube ends with a 3.
Yes.
I guess Cube Cub 3.
Cube Cub 3. And tonight we're going to talk about cube that Chris has submitted to and is going to be at CubeCon called the Dichotomy Cube, which I admittedly did not look at until today, but that's okay. I did look at it a little bit today, so it's one of the most interesting cubes that we'll be talking about in this series, so I'm excited to hear everything you have to say about it. So I guess first, before we get into you and your relationship to magic and all that, I do like to ask this question of everybody, so just tell me, in your opinion, or unless your opinion is objective truth, what do you believe is the most overrated and underrated breakfast food?
Ooh, alright. Underrated. Easy. Cereal.
Like cereal.
Breakfast cereal. Like
breakfast
dry breakfast cereal. So what I do is every morning I get up, open my cabinet, and I've got 12 different boxes of cereal.
Uh-huh.
I just start mixing and matching every day. 3, 4 different kinds, put them together, maybe some almonds, peanuts, whatever. And it's a different breakfast every day. Could do it forever.
And these are like cereals that I ate as a kid, or are they like adult cereals, quote unquote? Or are they
if you had the ones you had as a kid, I'd probably have diabetes.
Diabetes? Yeah.
So, no, they're the adult, hippie, crunchy, whatever.
Okay, like granola. Or stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay,
Once in a while you get the organic life cereal knockoff, and you're like, okay, I can do that.
Yep. Okay, so underrated because it's fast, it's healthy, and it's texturally very interesting, I guess.
Yeah, well, when you mix and match, right? You're creating your own flavor every day. Variety is the spice of life. It's pretty nice.
Hell yeah. Okay, so what's the most overrated?
I don't know if I can crap on someone's breakfast.
Hey, we're here,
or metaphorically.
Here for takes. We're here for takes.
For hot takes. I've heard it said that. Well, let's see. We trashed pancakes last time. I'm not gonna tread on that.
Okay.
I'm not gonna tread on that.
It is a popular answer.
Oh. Too much? Yeah, no. I think waffles are overrated. I think waffles are overrated. Yeah. I think they're just pancakes that you smashed with a hammer.
You did.
And pancakes are already overrated. So.
Yeah. They're pancakes you sprayed canola oil on the hammer and smashed it. Yeah. They're very similar, actually, aren't they? You probably the batter is probably very interchangeable. All right, I dig it. I'm up there with cereal being underrated. I mean, would you consider oatmeal cereal?
No, yeah, different world. I think
Okay.
Different world.
Okay.
I don't know. I feel like oatmeal is for people who want to punish themselves. But at the same time, I don't think it's call oatmeal overrated because there are very few true oatmeal fans out there. And if there are, you kind of have to respect them. It's like Calvin and Hobbes. I don't know if you've read that.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the day, Calvin's dad, right? The guy who was yeah, oatmeal. Prunes. Do we have any? It's all right. I gotta respect that.
Hey, listen. Those people exist. They might be on this call right now, but they do exist. So. I did have oatmeal this morning for breakfast.
I was gonna ask what you did for breakfast. All right.
I ate smoothies every morning for a couple of years, and now I am taking a break, and I'm making oatmeal with like nuts and seeds and a little bit of oat milk, I guess. Oat milk, oatmeal. I don't know. Maybe it's an oat thing. But yeah, I don't know. It gives me tons of energy. I love it.
Yeah. My wife did oatmeal like for years, and she's like, "Why am I eating this stuff?" She's like, "That's good for me, whatever." But lately, she started making them into muffins instead.
Ooh.
It's killer.
Yeah.
It's killer. It just like takes it to the next level.
Yeah.
Like same food, but somehow like condensing it, handheld. It's like I don't know.
Yeah, and you can make them in advance. You can take them on the go. It's good.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a fundamentally different object. You can eat it in the car on the drive over.
All right, good. I like that. You know what? This is actually a little different from everybody else's answers, so thank you for that. Okay, so I'd like you to talk a little bit about yourself. I want to hear about your history with Magic. Like, what is your relationship to it? When did you get into it? How long have you played? Tell me a little bit about like how much you've been engaged with it over the years, and then tell me about how that became about Cube at some point for you.
All right. The long and winding road. So
Yeah.
I started playing Magic back in 1994.
Beautiful.
I remember going to what was it, Walden bookstores?
Mm-hmm.
I think that was the name of the place, right? To buy like the starter decks.
Yep.
Buy starter decks.
$7.95.
Yeah.
Yep.
My first booster pack was the Dark, I think.
We are
and I remember,
very we are very similar in that way.
Is that-
I started
yeah?
playing in '94. I bought a
That's why I
Vice
thought I
starter
remembered.
deck, and I bought a Dark booster pack.
Nice. Nice. Oh, yeah. I remember getting so excited about opening Scarecrow. I was like, yes!
Yeah,
The Flyers aren't going to get me now.
that's right.
Low price of 11 mana. You too can buy a Flyers only fog.
I'm like looking it up now.
Uh,
Oh yeah, there it is. Yeah, prevent all damage that would be dealt to this turn by creatures are flying. Yeah, 11 mana. Of
No
course. Doesn't kill them, just prevents the damage.
That's right.
Yeah.
But I feel like at that time, Magic was a fundamentally different experience as a game.
Yes. I agree.
Did you play that style too, right? Where it's just like your deck was just all the cards you had,
Yes. It
right?
was.
Rainbow colored, stacked up.
Yeah. It was like
trying to attack someone with your Pearl Unicorn.
yeah, and like somebody played a Royal Assassin and it was like, "Whoa, this is like the craziest card I've ever seen." This seems
Unbeatable.
unbeatable, unfair, unbeatable. What is this? And then like because it was revised, if somebody cast like an invisibility or a false orders, it was like it was like you were seeing like something that it was like seeing something that you'd never seen before. I don't know what the right word
Mhm.
is, but it was something mystical, and it was something like because you didn't know what existed really, and you were reading the cards for the first time. Sometimes you didn't. You were trying to figure out what the person was trying to do with anything that they were casting. But yeah, like the cards that they didn't print from Unlimited to Revise were like these magical things, and not like Moxus. Like everybody knew about whatever power cards, but like, yeah, invisibility. It's like whoa, like this is like they don't make that anymore.
Oh, I'll put that on my Juggernaut. What? Whoa.
Yeah. But yeah, it was a very different experience.
And just hearing on one of Mark Rosewater's podcasts the last couple of weeks, he was talking about how in the early days they intentionally they didn't have collector numbers, they didn't have rarity symbols, right? You had no idea, just what was out there. It was even early days of the internet, right?
Yes.
You just had it was just word of mouth, just people like, oh, I heard there's this card out there.
Yeah, and you had to buy Scry magazine to look up the actual card list for a set, because they would have the list of every card and the price. I think it was Scry before, because that came out before Inquest, or The Duelist, or one of those like really early TCG publications.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like trying to figure out how cards work, like, you know, Richard Garfield really meant for people to just like try to navigate the rules on their own. You know, I remember trying to figure out what you did. Oh God, what was the card that changed the text word to change the color on it? There were the laces that would change the colors.
Yeah.
Right?
And then there was
But then
Sleight
there
of
was
Mind.
like Sleight of Mind that would
Yeah.
change the color. I was thinking Magical Hack, but that's lands. Yeah, Sleight of Mind. And so I was like, what happened to Sleight of Mind a kobold where it's like, this card is red? But then you like lace it. What color is it gonna be? Or I remember not being able to believe that like a Tog's ability was only till end of turn, even though I had the same templating on Fire Breathing. I couldn't believe that you would like have to sacrifice an artifact just to get like a temporary boost. I was like, this card's garbage. What? When I finally figured it out. But a Tog still held its own, looks like, over time.
It did. Just got banned from Pauper this year.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I gotta ask, did you ever play for Ante?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah,
I did a lot. I did for like at least the first 6 months I played Magic. Because people would play with, but like you would ask the other person. You'd be like, "Do you want to play for Ante?" And they'd say yes, and then you'd play, and you flip the top card or whatever. And if you didn't, you'd have to take out your, Contract from Below and Demonic Attorney and Jeweled Bird and all that shit. But yeah, I mean, I did. I flipped a Scrubland once and had to play for it. That was exciting even back then. Did you play for Ante?
Oh yeah. I would sweat if like my Siobhan Dragon flipped. I was like, oh no.
I know.
Like one, I love that card, and well, they were actually worth a lot back then.
They were, if I remember correctly, yeah.
I remember someone. I was at my grandparents' house, and there's some friend of theirs, like this little kid, and their parents were like visiting my grandparents, and the kid saw my Magic collection, and the dad walks in and like offers me $20 a pop for my Siobhan Dragons. It's like, my kid really desperately wants the Siobhan Dragon. Can I give you $20 for this? And
it was a lot of money back then in the early 90s. Like, wow.
It's actually probably a pretty good deal for a revised Siobhan Dragon now.
It probably is, honestly. I'm gonna look up the price of a revised Siobhan Dragon. I know some of them like have held tremendous amounts of value just because of how nostalgic the card is.
Mm.
And even like things like Garth One Eye being printed, like people will buy Shivan Dragons just so they can like summon it with
just
that
use
card.
as tokens.
Yeah, to use it as
Great.
a token. So like yeah, a revised Shivan Dragon is $30.
Whoa! Oh man.
Yeah.
Glad I held on to those.
Yeah. That's actually awesome. I didn't know that. Wow. That's amazing. Okay.
So,
Cool.
all right, so that's when I got into it, and I played for a while, but I feel like playing Magic at the time was a function of like what kind of, I guess it still is, like what kind of playing circles you have, but also like trading circles. Like when I got out of high school, I didn't have as many people to trade with, and so card flow dropped and whatnot. And about that time, they started pushing out sets a little faster, and they started printing things that were, just functional reprints, but slightly better. And this is embarrassing, but like the card that really pushed me out of Magic temporarily was Crown of Flames.
All right, I'm going to look. I didn't realize I was going to have to look up this many cards. I'm sorry.
It's all right. Like,
no, it's okay.
I believe. Let me see. Is that
like? Oh, okay. This card. What? Okay, so tell me. So this is a 1-mana aura that gives fire breathing, but you can also return it to its owner's hand. But the text
you can return it to you.
But the text is kind of misleading, I guess, if you look at it from an old Magic perspective.
Well, no, it was strictly better fire breathing.
Yes,
right?
It is. Yeah.
So it was this like card that I loved using, and I was like, oh, this card is part of my deck. I really like my Uthden Troll, Dwarven Warriors, generic 2/2, and make a creature with 2 power unblockable and like attack with your fire breathing up control. What are they gonna do about it?
Yeah.
But like I didn't have income at the time, and the thought that like every card that I would own, I mean, this is back before anyone like, there was Type 1, Type 2 ish, if you were more engaged. But if you're a casual player, you don't have that conception. You don't have the idea of like things rotating out, right? You just play with the cards that you have.
Yeah, it's
but
just
the fact that
magic.
yeah.
Yeah.
But if your cards become obsolete, it's like, oh no, I just have to keep buying cards, and without having a job, without having income, I'm a poor college student or whatever. I'm just like, I don't know, maybe I should take a break. So, I kept my collection, and like I played casually off and on still through the whole time. But, I kept an eye on Magic, but it wasn't until Mirrodin, I think, where I was just like, oh no, I have to jump back in. So
That's interesting because that's when a lot of people left the game.
yeah, well, because I knew enough to know that it would be broken.
Yeah.
Right. I was like, I need these cards in my collection because they're gonna be busted. You can't make an artifact set without breaking things. It just goes without saying.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, their developed game design technology is getting better, so hopefully they can pull off artifact sets without breaking things. But so far, they don't have a great track record for that, right?
Nope. They don't, and we're coming up on another one this next
right.
year.
Like, that's the time to buy in, right?
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, so I started, and then I got sucked in more and more, and played. Luckily, I didn't start playing like competitively. And by competitively, I just mean like FNM or whatever, until Ravnica. Like Kamigawa wasn't enough to pull me in, but Ravnica was. Like it was something about that, like seeing the full screen on the Wizard Home set, Temple Garden, right, and being like they brought back some version of a dual land.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm in.
Sick.
And yeah, so my first draft was a Ravnica draft. And
not the easiest format to grapple with, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember like reading up on it, trying to prepare, going to my first FNM draft, and I'm thinking, all right, don't rare draft, right? Just like build your deck, take the good cards, but like everyone wanted the dual lands, and I was like knee deep in Golgari, and Pack 3 opened an Overgrown Tomb, and I was just like, yes.
Like I can do both. I can rare draft and take a card from my deck.
So and I made it to the finals. My very first draft.
Cool.
And that's it. I was in. I was hooked. Drafter for life.
Wow. Okay. Do you still primarily draft?
Yeah. That is 100%. Like, if someone twists my arm, maybe I'll play a commander. If someone loans me a deck, someone loaned me a Canlander deck just like yesterday. And it's like, sure, sit down and play. But like, I love to draft. Drafting is where I think the fun is.
Yeah, drafting is awesome. Drafting, I will agree with that. Cool. Okay, so.
Wait, can I ask a question back? When did you start drafting?
2013 when I came back. I drafted a little bit in the 90s, but I had no idea what I was doing, and I just rare drafted most of the time. I was just too young and just didn't care enough about it. But when I came back, I didn't have a collection, and there were like drafts firing all the time at the LGS near me. And so I drafted like a ton there when I got back. I was so bad at it. I played a lot of Constructed when I was a kid, so that stuff comes a lot more naturally to me, but drafting is more fun for me. But yeah, I became a draft junkie like when I came back to Magic. So since M14, which was not the best set to start drafting with, and then Theros. That was weird, but it's okay. I did it. I was still Magic.
There are a lot of Theros fans out there.
There are.
There are a lot of people. Yeah.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people who love the. Who was I talking to? Oh, talking to someone who from California. Just just yesterday when it was like, we're drafting like favorite sets, and it was like triple Theros. It was like, okay,
Cool.
great.
Yeah, I mean, it was fun. I drafted a ton of it. Like I do play it whenever it's like back on Magic Online or whatever. Um, but it's not like it's definitely not in my top 10 or whatever. But it was fun. I enjoy a good Wing Seed Rider and a good Gray Merchant of Asphodel.
Mm-hmm. I
Yeah,
mean, there's something about, I don't know. Hey, I'm drafting and I'm actually playing auras.
yeah. That's actually fun. Like before they actually just like started trying to push auras in like the 2020 way, like just making auras as creatures was like a really cool design innovation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Um all right. So, when did you start cube when did you start what did you learn about cube?
When did I learn about Cube? All right. So think, I think I learned about Cube through the Magic Show with Evan Irwin
Hmm.
back in the day.
Mhm.
Can't remember when that was. I think
2011, 2010, 2011,
20,
2012?
2010. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I would say 2010. Maybe, no, maybe a little before that. All right, hold on. Let me get my date straight. When did Scars of Mirrodin come out?
20 it came out after Zendikar, right?
Yeah,
But before Innistrad,
yeah.
so 2010.
2010. Yeah, all right. 2010's about right. Scars of Mirrodin is when I built my first cube.
Cool. You built your first cube in 2010, but when did you like so you learned about cube
I
through
learned about it. I was just like, I need to do this.
Okay. Okay.
That
Cool.
was that was it. I was like, take my cards, throw them together, let's go.
Yeah. Did
And
you have a list that you went off of, or did you just dig through your box and build it?
I mean, there's a little. I mean, a little bit of what was Cube back then was a little monolithic, um,
Yeah.
but I definitely put my own touches on it right away. I mean, most of them were probably atrocious and bad, right? A lot of pet cards, a lot of things that really didn't belong there. Um, but oh gosh, what was the? There's the some like 5 mana 4/4, but whenever a creature blocks it, it like destroys the creature. It had like Firstest Strike, bellowing Tangleworm, and like I had bellowing Tangleworm in it. I
Nice.
was, I was like, hey, this card is neat. It was not neat, but I mean, it was interesting and fun. I don't know if it's particularly good.
Well, it's not Bellowing Tangleworm, because that's the 4/4 with
Oh,
Intimidate that gives green creatures Intimidate.
oh no, what was it? Oh,
We said it was a green creature
being uncommon.
that was a 5 mana 4/4.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna
Engulf?
figure it.
No, that's maybe.
See who can find it first.
Engulfing. Oh, wait. I was remembering the. So wait, what's the? Maybe I did have bellowing tangleworm, but the one I was thinking was engulfing slagworm. Yes, it was engulfing slagworm, which is a 7 mana 7/7. So better rate. Get some square stats there. 7 mana 7/7. When it becomes blocked, when it blocks, it becomes blocked by a creature. Destroy that creature. Gain life equal to that.
Oh
creature's.
wow. Okay. Okay. I mean, I don't hate this for like as like a chaos draft finisher. It's pretty sweet. Hey, it keeps you
Yeah.
alive, or the reward hits for 7. You know, that's awesome. I think there's something really wonderful about most of the people I speak to saying that they just built their cube out of whatever they had, because I certainly did not do that, and I kind of wish I had in retrospect.
Oh, what did
Um,
you do?
well, Cube Tutor was a thing, and so I researched the top cubes on Cube Tutor, and looked at all the cards that were popular or frequently played, and then combined them with the cards that I liked for my friends' cubes, and then bought all of them and built my first cube. Because I wanted a particular power level and experience. But I definitely had enough cards to just throw a bunch of cards together. Yeah, but I didn't do that. But it's such, for me, the like purest way to start getting into the format. So it always makes me smile to hear that.
Is just cards I have.
Yeah, just cards I have. These are all the cards I kept, and now they're going to go into a cube. It's great. It's great. It's how you get things like Barbary apes in a cube, you know? It's like, well, I didn't have Grizzly Bear, but I had Barbary apes, so there's my 2/2 for 2. It's like, sweet. That's great. And it's weird, so I love it. Okay. So you found out about it, and you just immediately threw it together, and you had a play group that you could jam with, I'm assuming, regularly, or in LGS. Which one did you have for that?
It was a play group, yeah. I mean, cool. we got together, not that often, actually, early days, maybe every few months. I had, like, local friends. That's to get, like, 8 players for a draft. We could do Winston draft with, like, a couple of us, every 2 weeks or so. But really getting, like, the group together. I have a bunch of friends who, since way back, since even prior to 2010, when we want to play games, we get together to play games, like, serious hardcore. So we just, like, make a whole weekend of it. That's it. So we, like, pick someone's house, we pick a date, and, like, that's it. 48 plus hours of almost nonstop gaming. You might stop to sleep for, like, 5 hours or so, but
it's like a camping trip. But all you're doing is gaming. You're camping. You're, like, in the cave. It's awesome.
Camping in our living room.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that sounds great. I did, like I told you before the stream, I had a whole day of gaming here, and I definitely, like, want to. I'm, like, approaching that time in my life where I'm like, I probably should, like, think about renting a house somewhere, like, in upstate New York or something, and, like, getting a bunch of guys together for a weekend of, like, Magic, because it's the only way I'm going to lock everybody down for a whole weekend, because it's really, really hard to get 8 people together for a draft in New York City. Yeah. Cool. So you've been cubing since 2010-ish. You've had a lot of time to build stuff. That's awesome. That's, like, I think the only other person that had been playing that long or cubing that long was Thrill Rider, David White. Because he started building cubes around the same time you did. Okay, so tell me about the cube we're talking about today, the Dichotomy Cube. Let's zoom in on that. When did you first have the idea for this? What was the inspiration for it? How did you end up building it or putting it together? When? Give me a little bit of, like, background on that.
Oh, can I back up a little bit to a bit running start? So, yeah, all right. So 2010 first cube comes along, iterate. I think at some point I tried to make a pauper cube, but it was terrible, and I just, like, scrapped it after its first initial test run.
Okay.
But in 2017, I just had the itch to design, and I decided, what if I make a cube where the color wheel, not necessarily the color pie, but the color wheel was just all twisted. And so I designed what's now my Bizarro World cube. But I didn't make it in paper right away, but, like, I had made designed my second cube. And shortly after that, I made my, like, peasant cube, because, you want one to take camping, or I'm a school teacher, and, you want a cube to have where, like, kids can, spill their juice on it, and it's not the end of the world. And it just, like, accelerated after that, like, cube idea after cube idea after cube idea. So currently I've got 11 cubes in paper, which may be a problem.
It's not a problem. It's just it's a lot, though. It's amazing. It's amazing. It's so many children to keep track of.
it's a little too many. But I just like I love them all. I love them all so much. And I still get the itches to I like craving to design another cube. Like I'm always jotting down ideas and like interactions and like cards that would like work well together. Just so anyway, like roughly 4 or 5 years ago, I was on this kick, and I just have these ideas like, hey, what if I do a cube based around this? What about this? What about that?
Yeah.
And so at the time, there was this conversation around the MTGO cube about like, oh man, blue, green, and red are overpowered, but like black and white are like undraftable in it, right?
Yes.
And so streamers who would stream the MTGO cube would all talk about that, like the problem. Which, you know, honestly, I don't know that White Weenie was that bad ever, but whatever. They're like, you know, what do we do about these cards? And so, you know, I have a, you know, fairly, you know, my first cube is like an unpowered vintage 540. And so at the time, I was asking sort of similar questions. Maybe I was falling for their, you know, just being swayed by their comments. I'm not sure. But I was like, yeah. So what to do about black and white and cube? And I was like, specifically also, at the time, I was very focused on trying to do themes in my cube. I was like, what does black white do in here? What is it supposed to be?
Mm-hmm.
And for a while, I was just like, oh, maybe it's like a bard. Maybe I'll have it be like the bard, where it's like not great at anything, but it's kind of good at everything. And the more I thought about it, I was like, huh. Mono black has all the tools it needs for, you know, a decent aggro deck. So does white. They both do mid-range. They both do control.
Mm-hmm.
What if that were the entire world? What if black and white were the only cards in a cube? What would that world be like? What would that feel like?
Sure. Like what if I
as I started thinking,
what if I took the two worst, quote unquote, worst colors in Magic Online cubes and focused in on them only, because they seem to have everything that they need. So what happens?
Right, they're your own entire world, right? So you have this limited palette to paint with. What can you create? What other archetypes can I support in there? Can I make combo? Sure, I can make combo. Can I make ramp? Maybe. It's gonna feel different. Wait a minute, they both do reanimator. Yeah. And as I was thinking about it, I was also thinking about how, I mean, the first card, going back to 1994 for a minute, that I opened that I knew was good because someone else immediately tried to trade it off me. What was good? It was like Black Knight. I opened Black Knight, and I knew nothing about how Magic cards worked, right?
Yeah.
I was like, ooh, can I have that? And I was like, I don't know, is it good? And I'm like, it's kind of good, you know? But that Black, White, White Knight, right? That dichotomy. And they keep going back to it over and over again. I think more so than any other color pair, right? That they make a white card or they make a black card, and then they make one in the other color.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, I've got to do this. I've got to do this. So the Dichotomy Cube, the original constraint was just black cards, just white cards.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Only cards in the cube. Try to support as many different archetypes as possible. At the same time, I wanted to like pay homage to that mirroring that they do. Right? Like this almost parallel universe version of each other.
Yes.
And so that's how the Dichotomy Cube came about.
And this was around 2017, you said, right?
Yes. Yeah. Around 2017.
Okay. So, that's actually a while. Like, you've had this cube for 5 years. I love that. I love the what you took away from the sort of like consuming cube content, like with popular voices in the streaming community, and like ended up like taking something away from that ended up applying itself into this idea, or morphing into this idea. I've never seen anybody try anything like this, so I'm like really excited to go through this with you. I have it pulled up here. Let me just change the camera here. Cool. And let me zoom in a little bit.
All right.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the cube.
can I make a quick suggestion
Sure.
for how to view it? Could you go to sort, please?
Sure.
And then primary sort by tags.
Okay.
And then switch to visual spoiler. And large.
Oops. Wait. Visual spoiler. Large.
But go, yeah. Do the sort again. Sort by tags. All right. Oh, maybe you have to do medium.
Well, I zoomed it in. Is this better? Let me try.
Yeah, try large regular.
This is a little bit.
Oh yeah, that's the stuff.
All right. So why did we change that? Why did we change this?
So as you scroll,
Oh,
every partnered card is next to each other.
Oh, that's you went through all the effort to do this, didn't you?
Mm-hmm. Took me all summer.
I believe it. Yeah, so here we have all the dichotomy cards represented. This is aesthetically very pleasing to look at and acknowledge the work that you went into. I bet you were super excited about Champion of the Perished.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, Reaper, Flight Moon, Silver, and Fallen Angel, yep. Oh, yeah. Alright, this is great. So, as we look through this, let's talk about it. So, give us your, goals of the design space, big picture ideas. Talk a little bit about that.
All right. So, I want to support, popular, common, enjoyable archetypes. And so you've got aggro decks in each color, plenty of 1-drops, plenty of 2-drops, even some unusual ways to have reach in there. We've got mid-range decks. We have a few tribes in there. Yeah,
After we have a quick question here from Tanya Harding.
Yeah.
After CubeCon, any plans to include the apt black and white spells with off-color kicker costs from Dominaria United?
Oh, that is a great question.
Like Banal Sleeper.
Right. If there are two that balance out with each other nicely, I think there would be good ads. I do have two ads from DMU to throw in there that I have not yet. One is the blanking on the full name, the saga with Gix. Is it Return of Gix?
Cruelty of Gex.
Cruelty of Gix. Thank you.
Yeah.
Is a pretty good version of Elspeth Conquers Death.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
I think those two have to go next to each other. And then, of course, the Knights, right? 2 more Knights came out. They have. So if I find a kicker ones to match, definitely. So we've got a lot of good mid-range classic cards too, right? They're neither color is shy on 3 and 4 drops that have good value. For instance, we have control cards, plenty of sweepers. Card advantage is a little more challenging to come by, but it's in there.
Okay.
We have some tribal themes, like I mentioned. There are demons and zombies and rats in black. There are angels, some humans, and soldiers, and rebels in white. We have a few fun combo cards in there that you may see as you scroll through as well. Oh, Reanimator.
Yep.
Although I had to keep it a little on the clunky side, right? To keep white Reanimator
Like balanced with the black ones.
balanced with the black. Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
the colors have slight edges over one another, right? There are some things that one color does better than the other, and that's just gonna happen. Like black has a much more difficult time getting rid of enchantments, but there are some ways to do that.
Yeah, you have color hosers in here too. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about like your idea behind the kind of gameplay that you expect to see. So you mentioned a little bit about like macro archetype support, but is there anything else you can speak to or that you like that you should mention about like
I mean,
the kind of like the goals for the kind of gameplay that you want in the cube?
the goal ideally is it for it to play a little like the rock paper scissors that is Magic, right? That but it's across a couple of dimensions you have to watch out for, right? So you've got your aggro versus mid range versus control, which doesn't have to be one beats the other, but they have their edges, right? If I'm running a control deck, I'd much rather face a mid range deck than an aggro deck in this cube, for example. But then you have the second dimension of color specificity, right? That sometimes playing the same or opposite color as your opponent might matter a lot. Oh, and there's probably an important detail I should mention, especially for those who might draft this at CubeCon, is that this cube, since it has that dichotomy, like the pairs, each color is sleeved in a different color.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
Yes.
That really threw me for a loop. Talk about that for a minute. So, tell us about that, because I don't even know what to make of that.
I mean, part of it thematically just pushes this idea of, like, strongly encourages someone to pick a side, right? Even if it's just subconsciously, right? Like, gosh, do I really want to splash this, black card in my mostly white deck? But at the same time, it's sometimes might become a game in itself, is deciding what to include or exclude. So for example, a couple weeks ago, last time I drafted this, right? I presented my deck to my opponent, and it was a stack of 39 black sleeves and one white sleeve.
Okay.
Right? And like, without fail, each match, game one, they cut the white sleeve to the bottom. And then game two, they're like, I just gotta know. And so they cut it to the top.
Like, what are the basic lands color coded too?
Basic lands, same thing.
So what does that do for you? Like, how is it, like, doesn't that get, like, do people ever, like, say anything about that? That it's, like, that it gives them a kind of, does it ever work against you?
So far, no. So far, no. It just, pushes the theme and the flavor and the whole experience, right? You get this, kind of like they were shooting for in Mirrodin Besiege, right? Like, pick a side. How's that feel? Like, this is like I'm planting my flag. The first pack one, pick one. It's like drafting original Innistrad, right? Where someone drafts like a double face card and you announce it to the table, right? You plant your flag.
Sure.
You look, people make the pick. The person to either side of you is the same color you are, and you're like, uh-oh.
Sure, but
there are. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, but that's different from having literally different colored sleeves on the cards, right?
Oh yes, for sure. But, I mean, there are reasons people like draft the Rebels deck, right? And there are Rebels in black and white.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So they're just like, hey, I want every Rebel I can get my hands on. Let's do this.
Yeah.
So they will like mix it up. Some people are just purists. They're like, all right, nope. All white sleeves for me. All black sleeves for me.
Hmm. So, do you intend people to mix the colors, or do you intend them to does that incentivize people to draft 4 white, 4 black? Like, how does that end up?
Yeah.
Is that like what do you intend to happen, or like how does that usually play out?
So the intention is to nudge people, subtly or not, towards not no, nudge is too strong a word, but to give a small bias towards monocolor. Specifically because whenever I design a cube, I want it to be inviting to new players as much as possible,
Okay.
right? And one thing you have to be careful of in an environment like this, right, is there are a lot of cards in there that are double pipped, triple
Yes.
pipped, right? And so a relatively new drafter, an inexperienced Magic player, can get themselves into a lot of trouble if they sit down and they take Black Knight and White Knight and try to put them in the same deck.
Yes.
There is no color fixing in this cube whatsoever,
I noticed that. Yeah.
right? And so the sleeves are an excellent way of like just giving that helpful nudge to the new player, right? Experienced players, they're like, they can probably weigh the pros and cons a little better, although it's probably, you know, I think it's a novel experience because everyone is sort of playing with marked cards, but
They
it's open information.
Yeah, they are. But like I look at these cards and a lot of them do pull like make me want to play monocolor more than they want to make me play with 2 colors. So I guess in that sense you're building the cube to like you said, you're incentivizing it. I mean, it's not outright because you can't tell them what to do, but you're definitely making it hard. And you know what? Black and white notoriously have very color committing mana costs as well, so I'm not surprised to see it in the cube. Wow, really interesting. Really interesting. Yeah, you are kind of like picking sides. And like you said, that I like that you said that. It's part of the experience of playing the cube. Um, it is kind of that is kind of like a. So that this is a question I do ask people. I forgot to bring it up to you before. So, uh, do you think that this is a? Would you say this is a top down cube or a bottom up cube?
Oh man.
Because they naturally bleed into each other, right, and reinforce
Hmm.
each other. But there's always one that ends up taking priority and informing, the rest of it. And this cube is particularly very difficult, especially in the way you're executing. In the design seems mechanically driven because you're restricting yourself to 2 colors, but yet there's the nature of the design is very top down and how you're doing opposites and you're sleeving you're using different colored sleeves, so you're incentivizing this like aesthetic rivalry between 2 colors. So but the restriction is mechanical, but it seems to me like it's top down. I don't know, what do you think about that?
Yeah, no, I think I would agree with that assessment, right? And it's the fact that the colors do so much, going back to like that Bard thought, right? That gives me license to do the top-down restrictions. It's like, all right, here is the world we're paving out, and I do it mechanically, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
you look and you're like, oh, yes, right? They're not super supportive necessarily, but they're supportive. I would argue enough.
Man, is Holy Strength just that bad that we have to that we can't play
I
it?
couldn't quite do it. I don't
Like,
know. And this is gonna be one of the tensions I talk about. Like we can talk about right now. That is a tension in this cube, right? It's like, oh, do you go with like how perfect a symmetry do you go for,
right.
versus do you go for the symmetry? Do you go for the gameplay?
Yeah, because Indomitable Will is like a very good combat trick.
Hmm.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. Because I would expect to see Holy Strength there, but You did think about that a little bit. You chose the better card, yeah, which I think is I think that's good.
I don't always do that here, but
that's okay.
Yeah.
You have to have standards. You have to be able to draw the line somewhere.
And when I first created this cube, you know, I just had the sketch up on Cube Cobra. I also just threw in one copy of Jason the Mind Sculptor, just to be funny.
Got a trickster as well on our hands too. I like that. Good.
I mean, because where else are you gonna get like a last pick Jason the Mind Sculptor?
Hey, you can cast it with Smothering Tithe. It's right here.
That's true.
So
the one card in a blue sleeve, everyone knows.
Yes. Or like a gray sleeve, you know. Wow, interesting. Okay. I think I'm starting to get this a little bit now. So we want to see people kind of take sides in the dichotomy, in like the black and white fight. Some people might play two colors. Mostly we're, maybe probably going to see 6 to 7 drafters go monocolor, I'm guessing. Maybe all 8 usually do. Maybe somebody splashes, but splashing seems very hard. And I have these this wonderful aesthetic tension between the two colors. This is really cool. During these interviews, I've seen a lot of top-down cubes, and I have never designed one. And the more and more I talk to everybody about it, the more I realize I should try doing this, because it's so different from the way I think about cube design. So it's been, I don't know. It's very not how I think about things, so that probably means I need to try it.
If you were to ask me what my general, if I had a mantra on cube design, it would just be this. It would be build another cube. People have all these ideas and oh, wouldn't that be neat? I don't know. Yeah, just build another cube. When in doubt. I wish I could do this in my cube, but I can't. I really feel this. I'm really sad I had to cut this card. Build an environment for it.
Sure. Make the card good. Make it, but let the card, if that you love so much, become, the
seed.
You
plant the seed and grow from it.
Like you said with Phyrexian Obliterator. It's a good example.
That might have been before we went live, but yeah, I built my Darkness cube is designed where I wanted a cube where someone could first pick Phyrexian Obliterator and just go. Just know that was a perfectly viable route.
Yes.
So, gotta ask.
Yeah, go ahead.
If you were to do a top-down design, what would it be? Or, if you had top 3, if you can't choose.
It would probably be something to do with a horror themed cube. Not like Innistrad Plus, but Innistrad would obviously have a lot to say about it, but just a flavorfully horror themed cube. I think that's the first thing that comes to my mind. A lot of things to do with the graveyard and trying to prioritize, but I'd have to try to prioritize aesthetics and flavor over mechanics, which means that because I'll naturally start gravitating towards how can I utilize the graveyard and things dying, but I have to maybe think about it a little differently. I don't know. I have to get back to you on that. My first answer was horror themed cube, but maybe if I think about it a little more longer, I could get another candidate up there.
I think it's the marriage of both, right? That is the joy in the cube design, right? Finding that card that hits your theme, but also just really sings mechanically.
Yeah, right. exactly. It's always going to have both. It's not binary, right? But what is the that's a great you put it very well there. Like what is the card that I could look to that speaks to me very flavorfully that I could then use to find mechanics to build around it. Okay. I will
Right.
take I'm gonna have to take myself to task on this later.
When you do, like, you find yourself like rooting for the weirdest crap. Like every set that comes out, I'm like, come on, green rogues, or come on, white elf. You know,
Like
they
are
put
they
one, and I'm like, yes, so
yeah.
excited. You know,
Like are they gonna give it to me? Are they gonna give it to me this time? Come on. Yeah. And there's really something to be said for like, you know, developing your ability to understand how to execute flavor first. I think there's a lot left to learn there. For me. Anyway, enough about me on that. Tell me, what do you see? Where is the fun for you in this cube? And I guess we're kind of already there, so it's a perfect segue. But tell me about where people that draft it find the fun.
so when I design a cube, my hope is like from the first cracked pack, right? The minute someone picks up their opening 15 and looks at those cards, I want joy,
Yes.
right? I want people flipping through the cards and being like, wait, this is in the cube, right? Or like, what does this card even do?
I
Or,
know.
oh my gosh, I remember this card. Right? I had someone windmill slam a Phage the Untouchable. Like, probably shouldn't be in this cube, but that's exactly why it's in this cube.
Yeah.
They were just like, Phage, gotta run Phage. Phage is partnered with the Chroma. They were just like, I love Phage. I gotta make this happen. Right?
There
And
it is.
to their credit, they killed someone with Phage. Like, achievement unlocked.
That's so dope. And you get to give them that experience, right?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's all about, I don't know. Like, if people are wondering, like, how should I draft this cube? How should I approach this? CubeCon, whatnot. Go for the dream. Right? Just try to live the dream.
That was literally an episode of this series. Talking to David White about the Live the Dream Cube. Ooh, I'm out of focus. There we go. Yeah, that's a good, but that informs where the fun is like just going for the thing that you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
People find joy in the, would you say it's like in the draft is always for a lot of people the most fun part of cubing. Do you find it is in like drafting and deck building? Do you find that people like the gameplay plays a part in that too? I mean, obviously it's Magic and Magic is great, but
No,
yeah.
Magic is never going to let you down, right?
No.
There are those amazing moments, right? Where, I feel like I've got them. I drop the pro black creature against like the mono black deck, and then they play that devotion guy who like makes green squirrels, and you're just like, no, right? Like those moments is so great,
Yeah.
right? And yeah, and I try to like some of its flavor in there for some of the pairs that don't seem like power optimized, right? But some of it's just fun, just like good old fashioned, like why we got into Magic in the first place. Enjoyable, delightful cards.
Cool.
Speak of the devil, there he is.
There he is. There he is, Underworld Hermit. Okay. Cool. let's talk a little bit about some design stories. Um, so, what are some of the things like? What are some of the success stories you have in the history of you owning this cube? What, like, give me examples of concepts you had laid out that have been able to stick or proven themselves successful since the beginning of the cube's design. What things have you tried that have really worked? What are you really proud of that you've managed to get in here?
Sure. So, some of the themes, right, like the combo aspect, like could I build combo, right, as a potential archetype? I knew, aggro mid-range control would take care of themselves, but what kind of combo decks could combo decks be effective? So, divine visitation, for instance, is in there. Like, does it pull its weight? Does it work? And like, absolutely, right? The combo decks work. And it's still interactive and interesting gameplay.
Okay.
So I was really excited about that. Throwing in the tribal themes, right? Can I really get away with a Rebels package? How is that going to work? Turns out Rebels are still good all these years later. Right? They're good to like someone is like, yep, white cards, black cards, shuffle them together. Let's make some Rebels.
Sweet.
And it did its thing. I was like, yes. The Rats package, which I've always wanted to see in action. Right? And you build Rat Tribal. Answer is yes. Yes, you certainly can. I don't remember when Marinara was previewed and everyone got so excited about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember.
Like, this card is sick. Did it really see play? No. It does now. And it's great. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Marinara and Packrat together.
Is Packrat in here too?
Packrat is in here.
Oh man.
It's harder to see because it's the secret lair version. But my one regret about the system I set up is that I couldn't think of a method off the top of my head for how to pair them, and so it was literally the cards that were on my kitchen table at the time. I just gave them numbers. Probably should have entered one into, Cube Cobra and followed that structure, maybe white first or black first, and then paired the other one with it. So it'd been like somewhat intuitive to search this system, but
I think the way you have it set up is very aesthetically pleasing. Like, I'm just scrolling through it because it's fun to see the cards juxtaposed against each other.
I would have loved to have both, right? Like, go up by, I don't know, white creature converted mana cost first, and then have whatever black card is paired with it go along, so there's some way of indexing it.
For sure.
I don't know. Someday, when I get my cube intern, maybe I'll have them do that.
Your full-time cube intern? Yes. Please go playtest for me. I need filing, collating tools for this cube, and I need you to playtest this cube as well today. Thank you. Yeah. Cool. So, themes and combo pieces, really successful. That's awesome. Things like tribal is something that like I'm always really nervous about. So really exciting to hear that like it comes like the thing does the thing. It comes together. That's great. That's really great. We need more rats. The
one thing that I wonder about, like, that so far has been a success story, but could easily break under serious stress test, the sleeves, right? The choose a side feel, right? So far has been fine.
Okay.
But I do wonder if you like put it in front of a bunch of people who are like super sweaty about like how they play their Magic, if everyone was as cutthroat as possible, and not there for the joy of drafting, but actually, trying as hard as possible to get every possible edge to win.
Yeah.
If you got 8 people there, I think the sleeves have the potential to take away from that. unless everyone's on the same metagame level about it, right? Like, as long as people are moving up the metagame ladder simultaneously, it's still fine. But as soon as like one person's here and one person's there, like there's a potential for someone to get upset.
I think if you are, yeah, like somebody's gonna feel slighted because like they'll feel like, you know, if too many people are drafting black and they feel like they have to be monocolor because there's no fixing, and then they're like, oh, but I like, you know, I don't want to pivot and blah blah blah, and yeah, but they can clearly see what's happening around the table. But then again, the flip side of that is like if they're just reading the table, they'll know, you know, what's coming to them, what seat they should be in, and like they should probably want to focus on monocolor because of the way the mana fixing is working. I'm just thinking about like if I was trying to spike the cube or whatever. So I just want to see. I'd want to see what was coming to me because it would make more sense for me to stay open and like lean into what is coming to me as opposed to fighting for something, because I know my chances would be higher if my deck was monocolor and not just like a mass of black and white cards, based on the card pool that I'm looking at here. At least that's just my assumption just from looking at the file. So I don't know. It's an interesting question. I don't think this cube is meant to be for really spiky players, but like, you know, who knows? Like, you're gonna put it in front of people like CubeCon and see what happens.
I mean, I'd be interested to throw it in front of spiky players who had a good attitude, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's the spiky and salty combination that I would worry about.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you have to worry about that all the time anyway. Right?
I don't know. It's pretty unavoidable where I am. Like, people in New York City get pretty, like, I'm not saying everyone's, like, hardcore, because, like, a lot of people aren't, but, like, you know, you can definitely bring it out of people, because, like, a lot of people in New York have a competitive outlet for Magic. It's hard for me to find, like very light touch casual players that want a cube, you know? I don't know. I think having a good attitude about it is really important. I think my attitude towards just generally cubing and Magic in general has gotten a lot more lighthearted over the last couple of years. I used to be the salt mine spiky player myself for a number of years. Definitely not the best place to be when you're just trying to unwind or have fun after work.
About to say, if it's how you make a living, that's one thing, right? But if it's a hobby, it's like, why am I doing a hobby that makes me upset, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm so glad I get to go play Magic and get stressed out after work. My life is so great. Yeah, I think somebody made a meme about that recently on Twitter. It was really funny. Just like somebody like looking like this, their heads in their hands. They're like, "Oh, I love Magic because it helps me relax." Okay, so what are some things about this cube that haven't worked and that you had to change? And is that even something that you have to bring up, or, you know, can you think of any examples, or is everything kind of like been pretty smooth? And if you did have issues with something, like, what was the issue? How did you go about solving for it? Was there a process in that? Like, did you come to any realizations about the design of the cube or design in general because of that? Tell me if you have any stories on that end.
I mean, this might be kind of high level, but the notion, like the very idea of it, sort of puts pretty serious design constraints, right? And so the core of the cube itself is pretty rigid if I want to maintain that like overall black-white theme, which, you know, that seems non-negotiable. It would not be the Dichotomy Cube otherwise.
Yep.
And also the pairings, right? So the fact that I you know, want the cards to be diametrically opposed on a card-by-card, you know, A-B basis really restricts what I can do. And that, I think, makes me have a little more tolerance, right? Like, this there are more streamlined draft decks to be built out there than the decks that you can build from this cube, right? A lot of my other cubes, it's about optimization. Like, ooh, can I shave a mana off that effect? Can I get that creature with an additional power now because they had a slightly better reprint?
Sure.
Whatnot, right? And that's not really on the table here in the same way, right? It's more, all right, it's within the constraints of, hey, did they print something that's close enough, like Elspeth Conquers Death?
Yeah.
Right? Like, oh, what? Hey, great! I've got a little more, like, a little sliver, 1/80th of design space just opened up for me. Whatever.
I can finally complete the dichotomy of this effect. I can add it into the cube or whatever.
Right, which you didn't necessarily know that you were missing until like they printed the meat for the card.
Yes.
But that said, like, so if I have concerns, what can I do about them, right? And as I was drawing this thing up, I knew right away that protection is going to be an issue, right? What to do about protection from blah, because it's game winning in one matchup and effectively flavor text in the next.
It's a really wide range of gameplay.
That's serious variance right there, right? So yeah. I wanted to make sure that each color had some outlet, some aspect to protect themselves, right? And so early on up there, I picked just like 2 expensive-ish like artifacts, and I just arbitrarily chose one to be for white, one for be black. It used to be Scalding Cauldron. It might still be for an Aeolopile. Just to, be like, okay, you need to get a way to get a knight off the board.
Yes.
Right.
Here's 2 effects that help with that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll try to sprinkle that in where I can, for sure. So that's definitely one thing. And then I've touched on this briefly, but just my being tied to aesthetics might impact the draft, right? Like Fallen Angel probably shouldn't be in there, but it's so beautiful, right? Mm-hmm. With its partner, like how often are you going to get Delirium?
Probably never.
Right. So it's not like this. You're not like rife with fetch lands. So.
Yeah.
So they might rotate out for Elspeth Conquers Death, right? For a 5-drop slot. Like, at what point does function trump flavor?
If flavor is the priority, then function is there to like preserve the flavor. Like your example of black knight, white knight, and needing a solution for that is like you're putting in a little bit of insulation against it because you don't want to cut it because the importance of having black and white knight is like too great to the core design of the cube.
Yeah, it's so iconic. Like that's gonna be someone's first question, right? It's like, oh, we're black and white knight in here.
Yeah, exactly.
You gotta say yes.
Yeah, you have to be able to say yes, and you have to be able to give them. You have to be able to deliver on that promise. Like, oh, I did this. This is the most iconic, one of the most iconic, like, dualities in Magic, and like, in this space, we're gonna have it. If it's a problem, oh, it's kind of a problem. It kind of makes this like they're kind of like true name nemesises sometimes. It's like, okay, well, I'm gonna do a little bit of design just to give people some answers and some interaction insulation against it, but I can't cut it. And that.
But the very nature of the design also makes it hard for me to find solutions because the solutions are going to be white or black, right? And so.
Yeah.
Not always, I suppose, right? There, I think one of the first 2 are the like affinity for basic land type creatures.
Yeah, and you could even do there are other ways you could expand on the interaction level. Like you have sweepers, you have same color removal spells, just in like if that's ever comes up. But you also can do like there's other like artifacts you could put in that help. Yeah, there's like things like Entrancing Liar is like a card that keeps coming to my mind,
Mm-hmm.
which is like a mind control, um, but it's an artifact.
Yeah, that's from Theros?
It's from Theros Beyond Death. Yeah.
Beyond Death. Yep, yep.
Um, like there's ways you can like kind of get around it, but it's like, at what point are you putting like taking up space to answer a small problem? Like the number of games that are won from a Black Knight attacking into a mono white deck. Is it worth these cards? Is it worth like giving people enough insulation against them?
Right. If you're running the White Knight and then the mono black aggro deck comes along, like.
Yeah, and just plays 2 or 3 of these, in the first couple turns. It's like, all right, guess I didn't do anything. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
There's a. Oh yeah, you scrolled past a couple, but the alternate win conditions in there too, I think, are a big fun part of.
Yeah, you have a bunch of them. You have Contract, Approach to the Second Sun. You have Revel in Riches and Liliana's what's it called? Not Liliana's Mastery, but that old card that's like if you have 50 life, you win the game. Yeah, Test of Endurance. Yeah.
Test of Endurance.
Yeah. Can you actually win the game with this? Does this happen?
Oh yeah, totally. Because
I love that. That's the answer. It's like, of course, dude. Like, yeah.
Because there's the enduring renewal. I mean, it pays to know your Magic history with this for sure, right? But Martyr of Sands. I got my color right.
Martyr of Sands. Yes.
Martyr of Sands, enduring renewal.
Oops. I remember this card. This is an old card. That's funny. Little combos.
And whatever the guild pack one was with Fortell? No. What was the mechanic from guild pack? The Azorius mechanic. You had to reveal the card from your hand.
Forecast. Yeah. You're close. You almost had it.
Been a long day.
No, it's okay. For me too. I was sitting around while it was raining outside. It was exhausting. Okay, cool. So do we need to talk about archetypes in the cube? Is there anything you want to say about archetypes in the cube?
I think we've pretty much covered it, right? I encourage, if anyone's going to draft it, poke around, explore, do a couple of test drafts on Cube Cobra. But I think it's good the more open-minded you are as you go in. Don't have an archetype be dictated to you. In a cube where it's like, draft Merfolk or whatever.
Sure.
Right. I don't know how many cubes actually have a Merfolk theme. If you do, love to hear about it.
Yeah.
But just going in and just being like, look for the possibilities, right?
Yeah, and you have like things that pretty loudly point towards, I want to do this thing. Like Diagraph Colossus, Thalia's a 10, obviously like tribal stuff, but also like, if I see a Nuna's Prowler and a Pack Rat, I'm going to assume I can reanimate stuff. If I see aggressive creatures, I'm going to assume I can beat down with them. Like, there's pretty like clear, there's obviously like complex little machines that you can build, but like the creature base and what they're asking of you deck building wise is it's kind of all pretty well laid out. And then the like fun, there's like the really fun build around stuff, or like the fun, like you said, or like I've been loving since I talked to David, is like the Live the Dream cards. Like, miracle. Entreat the Angels is probably just a literal blind miracle in this cube.
Yes.
Yeah. There's like life gain stuff. There's sacrifice and tokens. There's
Live game. Yep.
Yeah.
Sacrifice. We mentioned zombies. We mentioned soldiers. We mentioned rats. We mentioned rebels. We mentioned. There's even like a little angel theme in there.
yeah.
Um,
There's
that right. Knights.
There's
A little bit of knights.
okay. I've lost many games to my own Greatborn Muse.
So good.
Very happy to see that. Cool.
I would say it pays to know your Magic history though to drafting this. That there may be combos or cards that were in famous decks or had famous use cases that people might not know. I mean, like the life game package we talked about. That was a while ago now, right? Because Enduring Renewal? Yeah, it was like Time Spiral Block.
Time Spiral Block, yeah. If I remember
which is closer to the dawn of Magic than it is current day, right?
Yeah.
So, I would imagine if you're going, to travel to Wisconsin for a cube convention, I assume you're somewhat invested in Magic, at least know a little history.
Agreed. If Abu Jafar is put into graveyard during play during combat, burial creatures blocking or blocked by Abu Jafar. Okay. Sorry, I was looking at this and I'm like thinking, I was like, should this be the other creature? It's like a 1-mana 1/1 and it says if this creature like blocks a creature, destroy that creature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it can actually deal damage?
Yeah.
Perhaps it should. I started the Abu Jafar because I was just like, let's throw interesting cards in and see if there's matches for them.
Yeah. So
Abu Jafar was actually the original, but I think that might be a better match.
What is it called? Oh my god. It was like a white. It was rare at first. It's a. I go to 1, power equal to 1, go to 1, white creature, rare. I want to think of it before I see it, but it's not happening anymore. Loyal Sentry.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No?
When it blocks a creature, destroy that creature.
Destroy that creature. Loyal Sentry.
So it's like a defensive 1-drop, but it does have power. It's more like
the other rat. So
yeah, it feels more like a rancid rat, but Abu Jafar is more nostalgic,
Mm-hmm. But then rancid rat isn't as. Anyway.
Yeah. True that. Okay.
If everyone gets a Mask of Avacyn on a Gristlebrand.
Can't be that hard. It's colorless.
All right, how about the other way around?
Mask of Gristlebrand on Avacyn. Yeah, I like that.
I think it's an automatic game win right there.
It might be.
On a quick.
Yeah. Come up with the automatic game win stipulation drafts.
If both players have both combos in play, they just win Magic forever. The end. You how many cubes have you designed?
Not that I don't know if I've actually like designed that many. I've like did a lot of work with like iterating on a couple different ideas. So like just working on just uh, aggro mid-range control packages a lot over the years. Um, Worked on an all mid-range cube, but it was like high power level, and then my current cube has been like a pretty main focus of mine for a couple of years. Um, what I've been doing the last couple of years, like as like little side things, is like a couple different little 180 card cubes. Like I said, the beginner one, and then I'm for a long time I've been really fascinated by the idea of building a cube for my friends that only like to play booster draft. Because a lot of my friends they're like hardcore drafters, don't like to play cube. Um, for a number of reasons. One, because they don't like that it's singleton. They don't like that it's there's nothing on the line, that they can't win the pool. They don't like that all the cards are like determined by somebody else and not openable in packs. Like it's not like as controlled of an environment as a limited environment is. I think mostly it's because they can't win money. I'm pretty sure, because they're degenerates. So, I've talked about this on the stream before. I've wanted to design a cube for them for a long time, and I had a lot of really bad attempts at it. What I decided last year was that I need to just make a cube that plays like limited, and that's probably means it has to be like a chaos format. So most recently I made I'm it's not done with the draft yet, but I made like a Pioneer legal only chaos format that is collated by rarity. So like it is 14 card packs, 10-3-1, and it's taking the design skeleton for a limited format and multiplying it by 6. So it's like by the numbers how they design limited formats, or the basic template for it, and made into a chaos format. So that's like the thing I'm like working on right now. I actually have to just do the rares and mythic rares, which I'm putting off until I think after CubeCon, I think. But yeah, I mean, a lot of my cubes are like very, like a lot of my stuff has been like working on like a singular idea or just a couple of singular ideas, and like trying to iterate on them and make the idea better and better over time. So I don't have like a lot of examples of cubes, cube ideas, which is interesting talking to you, and you have 11 different paper cubes, and you approach, you flesh out ideas a lot more than I do, whereas I like to come up with an idea and then keep refining it, and be kind of obsessing over making it as tight and perfect as I can, which is kind of like the obsessive nature of my main cube. Just aggressively culling and testing and getting reps in and making sure that the environment feels more balanced, and whereas you are much more, seems more embracing of ideas and exploration of ideas, which is something that I don't let myself do very often. So yeah, that's my answer for that.
Well, I wonder if there are like two audiences that a person could be designing a cube for, and that different approaches then can speak to each audience, right? A lot of times when I design a cube, my thought is, how can I lure someone who's drafted a little but not cubed into the world of cube?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because it's such a great format, right? It's like the free Magic format, except for like the one poor sucker. And
yeah.
And so, like, draft formats just come and go, right? And I love designing a cube that just feels more like a limited format. You step in, the power level is like not through the roof. So it's approachable. I mean, this cube doesn't do that, but like the notion when Watsi came up with signpost uncommons, I was like, yes, like I would love to have something like that in my cubes.
Sure.
Just to, like invite, like it's like a welcome mat, right, for the new drafter, for the first time drafter to come in. But like most people who play cube are not that person, right? Or they were that person at one time, but if you are into the world of cube, odds are you have a love of design, right? And so that notion of looking for the refined product, right? That like carefully polished and carefully honed experience, right? Tested and retested, reflected, reiterated. Like I think that appeals to like the enfranchised cube player.
Yes. It does. See, I actually think that like people can be interested in cube design, or people can be interested in cube without being interested in design if they're just players. I think that people that are interested in designing cubes are just kind of interested in game design overall, and even if they don't realize that they are. But I find that like people that engage with cube as players are the people that like, I can't sit and talk with them about my design ideas or like what I'm working on or how I'm working through problems and get the kind of like and expect a level, like a kind of feedback that I would get from another cube designer. I would get player feedback, which is like super valuable, but it is a lot of ways, and in many ways has nothing to do with like game design directly. It's just like how the end product is engaging with its audience. So I'm not going to call it like marketing feedback, but maybe I'm defining it that way without realizing it. I'm not really sure. I find the relationship between designers and their interests and then players and their interests incredibly fascinating. Might have something to do with my history in just working in my industry, working in sales and like being front facing with customers and developing relationships. Like there's probably an element of that in there that I'm attracted to, perhaps.
That makes sense.
Yeah. This is good. This is kind of putting a good like final stamp on me sort of thinking about allowing myself to work more in the way that you and other people have been working on cube ideas, and like focusing my energy towards a different way of approaching a game, and seeing what kinds of things come out and how it might help round out some of the things that I obsess over in my cube design projects. So it's been good. This conversation has been good as a kind of like it's giving me a kind of a final seal of approval for my mind to go to that place. So thank you without even knowing it.
Hey, this has been great.
Yeah. I guess I'd like to hear a little bit about, if you have an answer for me, just your opinion, I guess, on the way in which the community talks about Cube, and like, do you have any opinions or anything to say about like, when we talk about Cube, are there things that we talk too much about or not enough about, and what are those things to you, and if you have any opinions or anything to say about that?
Sure. I think the conversation that I would love to hear more of is talking about, which we've already touched upon in our conversation, is the cube design as an experience, right? What kind of experience are you trying to craft, and who is that experience for, right? And like, what is the goal of that experience you're trying to craft, right? So, for example, going back to things we've already talked about just a touch, right? Like, I want to spark joy, right? From the moment people open their packs, right? I want to spark joy. I want to pull people into the cube community. I want to grow the cube community, right? That's what it's for. And so, like, who is your audience, right? Who are you designing the cube for? And, right, we all know the answer is like 51% me, right? But beyond the rest of it, like, who am I designing this cube for? What are my goals in terms of gameplay experiences? Sure, that's part of it. But like life experiences, how am I contributing to the world around me? Right? By all this time, money, and energy I'm putting into this thing.
Sure.
Right.
One could say its community is a part of that, like developing a community, bringing people together, sharing, giving people a forum to share experiences together.
Exactly. And so, like, having conversations. So, I mean, we're having, so we can recontextualize our conversations, right? So, for instance, I know in the last year or so, people talk about, oh, do you need to have an archetype in your cube or not, right? Like, do you need to support archetypes? New cube designers come in. And I think we can have that conversation through a different lens. We can ask, like, well, what are the consequences if we do? And it doesn't have to be for gameplay. It can be for, like, the human experience coming to that cube,
okay.
Right? If I'm a limited player and I've never played cube before, but I've drafted, the last 5 limited sets that WotC's put out, and then I open up a cube and there are, like, gold cards that are giving me hints at what I might do in this new open playing field that I'm running around in, I feel welcomed. I feel invited, right? And so I'm building that community. I'm building that human experience. So I think that notion of extending our design consequences beyond just the cube itself is an interesting conversation to be had.
Can you give me another example of what you're talking about?
Am I developing my cube for my play group, right? Am I keeping this card in, because Joe really loves it, right? Am I designing a cube? I mean, a lot of it comes down to, like, am I recruiting? Am I just creating this in a vacuum? Right? Some people are designing their cube in a vacuum.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right? But cubing is a fundamentally human experience, and post-pandemic especially, like sitting down and connecting with people face to face, right? Even going back to the sleeves, right? Going back to that sleeves, that moment when you present a 39 card deck and then one off-color sleeve, right? And that little interplay between people where the person, like, goes to cut it and they're like, huh, right? You've had that moment. You can, like, remember that moment, right? And that is a direct consequence of your design choices.
It is, because you're manufacturing that experience for somebody.
Or you're leaving the room for the experience to happen, at least. Yeah, you're creating a place and hoping that the people come to the space, that you're making room for experiences to happen. Yeah. Right? The wild, wacky card that, like, oh, that's too expensive or never work or whatever, but that 1 in 100 games where someone actually connects with a Phage the Untouchable, right? Like, that person's got to talk about that experience for like 5 years from now. They're probably like, remember that time, right? And that's why so many of us play Magic. It's for moments like that. And so being intentional about crafting the player experience, not for gameplay like I attack or block or this meta beats that meta, but the human to human interactions, the creation of story moments, and designing a cube that is environment that's rife for those moments, right?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times I refer to cards as storytelling cards because they have the card has like a high equity in like being able to deliver a great experience between two players. A great example of one that was printed in the last couple of years is Fallen Shinobi. Um, the card is like, it's not a great card, in the sense that like it's wildly inconsistent. It requires some setup, and you can't really control the outcome of what happens. Yes, it hits hard, but like you're playing it not because it's a ninjutsu 5/4. You're playing it because of the story that comes out of your Fallen Shinobi trigger. You're playing it because you want to see you hit Emrakul and whatever off of it, or like Genesis Ultimatum and being like, holy crap, and like you're gonna leave the cube night and you're gonna talk about it, like you're gonna go to a bar and you're gonna have a drink and you're gonna bullshit about your Fallen Shinobi hit, and like that is that like the I guess I'm really coming around to the real importance of that, of like of giving that to the players. I think recently Carmen Handy, who handles all the Magic Online cubes, posted an update, or like like recently about or like there was some kind of like hot take thing that she had posted on Twitter, and a friend of mine had said, Baneslayer Angel is nowhere near good enough for the vintage cube in 2022, and her response was to make a meme, which is I think probably from some comic book that I was made into a movie, and I don't even know the name of it right now because I'm bad at that stuff. But it was like a meme where like this this big blue guy was like, basically saying, I don't care. And that was like kind of that's the same message as Carmen is saying, like, yeah, it isn't good enough, but you know what? I don't give a shit because Baneslayer Angel is awesome. And it matters more to me that somebody wins with Baneslayer Angel, that like plays it and wins a game with it, than me putting in some card that's better than it for the sake of it being better for the cube. And like there's a lot of value in that. And like this year I've really started to understand like what that means for as a designer, as like somebody that's like trying to create an experience for somebody, like who is trying to say to 7 other people, hey, like I think this is really fun, we should all do this together, and we can get closer and share some experience and time and all this, create human bonds together, and that those moments are worth a lot in that context. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think if I had one more thing to add or reiterate, right, it would be the mantra of build more cubes, right? The more cube experience, because that moment you're talking about, right? That like the story equity, the like just connection that we have to the cards, to the experiences, to the moments, right? That is certainly like something I advocate crafting for. But that doesn't delegitimize that person who like really wants their cube to just be very streamlined, which sounds like is your go-to, right? That like you want to spend time being like, hey, are these costed efficiently? Is this the best use of this limited real estate that I have, right? And I think it's beautiful, like that if someone wants to worry about that, have another cube to do that.
Yeah.
Right? You know, my 540 unpowered vintage, that's what that's for. If I want to just think straight efficiency, if I want to like block out for a minute, not entirely, but like shift that weight from like the human connection and experience to the just pure analytic design world, that's the playground I play in.
Yeah.
Right? And then if I want to make like wacky, unusual, you know, story moments, build a cube for that too, right? Like create the environment to support any experience that you want anywhere along that spectrum.
Sure. I will say in my defense, last night we did do the last cube we drafted was my cube, and a lot of the guys there were younger and they're primarily constructed players, and they you know, they were drafting my cube for the first time, and that moment that you mentioned about somebody opening the pack and being like, holy shit, like, oh my god, I'm in love with what I'm seeing in front of me, happened to like two of the guys. They were like, they lost their mind because like one of them was like, they took 2 picks and they're like, I'm in love with everything that's happening right now. This is amazing. And like, I don't get that strong of an emotional reaction for my cube all that like really that often. But like, they were just so happy to be like playing with the cards that I had given them, which are just like, or like I was just saying to them like, hey, you're gonna have tons of fetch lands and dual lands, and you're gonna build this like crazy efficient deck with like all these cards that you know that are super powerful in like constructed formats. And like they were just like, oh my god, this is incredible. Like I can't believe I get to do this now. And but that's who my audience is. It's for like those kinds of guys. So I got that experience out of those people. But like this idea or this like concept of, hey, this is great for these people. This is my audience. I should make things for my other audiences. My talking about designing a cube for my limited friends. That's a good exercise. Now maybe let's do something for another audience. My live the dream audience. Yeah. I think that phrase is so perfect. I really complimented David and other Davids for that. Because it so perfectly defines like an intended experience that you can just tell somebody with 3 words. Yeah. So your prescription of make more cubes definitely applies to me. And yeah, it's a good one. I think that's actually like a good message as like, hey, what can we talk more about in the cube community? My answer is always, you need to test more to get at your goals, to chip away at what you need to understand your cube is. And your message seems to be build more cubes, which is another really good one and a simple one to follow. Good. Yes. Anything else you would like to bring up? I think I'm pretty much out of questions.
Oh, like, I don't know, one or two more things real fast. Sure.
Yeah, sure.
I wanted to like plug a project I'm working on right now.
Please, let's do it.
That's on the Cube Chat Discord server, where, and it was based off of an episode of Lucky Paper Radio and like an experience that maybe you've had to, where if you have someone who doesn't know cube design at all, right, and they've tried their first cube draft, and they're hooked, they're in, they're like, they want to build a cube, and they come to you and they ask you, how do I build a cube, right? And for the longest time, I didn't quite understand the question.
Right.
I was like, what do you mean? And then it occurred to me that cube is one of the areas of Magic with the least rules or restrictions around it.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
Commander, you have to have 100 cards.
Yes.
You have to have a commander.
Yes.
You have to have a soul ring. That last one was a joke.
You have to have a
right?
single. It has to be singleton. It has to be color identity. There has to be all these things.
Standard, you can only play from this set,
Yeah.
right? You know, Canlander has its restrictions, whatever, right? And Cube doesn't have that in the same way.
Nope.
I think they go in and be like, what are the rules, right? What are the rules for a cube, right? And then I was like, oh, okay. I mean, and then there's some logistical things like, how do I start, right? Do I start by looking up a cube online? Do I start with cards I own and love? You know, how do you get into that?
Yeah.
And so Lucky Paper Radio podcast, you know, they had mentioned that, you know, they have the same experience. People come and ask them. And one of their approaches was like, you know, just start with cards you like and just start iterating, like just play it, right? You'll know right away. You'll know what you want to change and add.
Yeah.
Even just looking at a sample pack, right? Before you even play a game, you'll be like, whoa, I want to change this. And they're like, you could just start with a random pile of cards. And it's like, oh, challenge accepted.
Yeah, exactly.
So I decided to do it. I randomly generated 360 cards. All threw them in Cube Cobra, and then I decided every day I would have Cube Cobra recommend one swap, and I would do one swap, and I would do that for 180 days.
How did you randomly generate the initial list?
Cube Cobra has a random card generator, and you can just click Add to Cube.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
I generated 360 random cards.
Yeah.
It was surprisingly you could draft like maybe one or two decks out of it. You know, the bots are a little loose, so you could cobble together a deck.
Sure.
It wasn't unplayable. But so every day I go in and I take a swap. Cube Cobra makes a swap, right? And I call it the Bonsai or Bonds.ai project.
That's what that is. Okay.
So over the course of the next 180 days, I'm gonna try to see if I can like slowly shape this into something interesting. And just to add to the fun, I started a little game, little like mini Turing test game on the Cube Discord server, where I tell people the two swaps that have happened that day, and then ask them to guess which one was the human and which one was the computer.
So you go off of the data analytics thing where they do a card recommender that
The recommended ads, recommended cuts. And I don't know where it's going right now. It started off very interesting. Like Cube Cobra was making like very unusual suggestions for additions, and I was like, oh, okay. And like I didn't know quite where to go yet because it's so amorphous. Like where do you go with this like blob of 360 random cards, right? You like pouring through it looking for like any cohesion whatsoever, trying to send it in a useful direction. And there have been some great moments there where like Cube Cobra just gets totally xenophobic, right? And I'll throw in a card, trying to nudge it in a direction, and instead it just like jettisons the card immediately the next day.
It just, yeah, well, it did what a lot of people do, which is you add the card and then you take it out immediately. Like, what was I thinking? You go to bed, you wake up. Okay, so we have Territorial Hellkite as the top cut and Dismember as the top ad. So does that mean that...
Oh no! Spoilers for the game tomorrow.
Oh shit, sorry. Well, whatever. None of them are watching
Okay.
anyway. Okay, well, yeah. So
I mean, anyone can have access to that anyway. It's fine.
Dismember has entered the chat, I guess. Interesting. It doesn't look that... How far into this are you?
Was today day 81?
Okay.
Something like that. I have it on the blog day by day.
Did it actually recommend Shivan Dragon as one of the cards?
That was randomly generated, and it's still in there.
Okay.
That was. You can also see I have the first seed saved.
Yes, I saw that as well.
I've got yeah 13. So you can see where it started, the hot mess that it was.
Ooh, Surgical Extraction's still in there. I'm impressed that that's not one of the top suggestions for cuts, but what do I know? Wow, this is awesome. So weird. Like most of these cards are like totally fine too. There's a lot of like very. I mean, I guess it's going to do that. It's gonna use some kind of ranking system to generate these editions based on. And I'm wondering, like, sorry, my mind is just kind of going with this right now. Like, I'm wondering if the more you add conventional, or like, I should say, like, traditional cube cards, the more it will then recommend more of them, and that your list may end up being more, like, become less unique over time, and it'll just become more full of cards that we're all familiar with. I'm wondering, like, to what extent that's going to happen.
Oh yeah, no, I'm terrified since I'm not halfway through yet, and I feel like that's the gravitational pull in general, right? And so I wonder like how bitter the last 10 swaps will be. I'm just desperately trying to make something interesting remain in this as it's trying to assimilate me like the Borg.
Totally.
Like I imagined it instead this like symbiotic relationship, like me carefully pruning a tree in harmony with like this computer that we're each making suggestions and responding to one another. But I think instead it's just gotta like roll over me and get this like, I don't know, Magic the Gathering online vintage cube-ish, but not with power, but circa like 7 years ago or something.
Yeah, you're just gonna have like a shitty legacy cube or something at the end of it. It's gonna be
yeah,
it's gonna be like your your nice housing project turning into like a baby gap, you know.
Yeah, no, entirely possible that's where it's going.
Yeah.
If you are interested, I would love to incorporate like celebrity guest swaps. So if you want to do a swap at some point, hit me up. You know, we can have you make the change for the day, and people can try to do a little Turing test.
Okay,
Tell
so
the difference between you and the machine.
So the machine does the top recommended. You do the top recommended machine swap, and then I do a swap, and then they have to guess which one is the.
Yep.
They have to say which one is which, basically, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I'll do that. I will definitely do that. Just let me know.
I'll hit you up on the side for logistics.
Yeah, that'd be funny. Wow, captured by the consulate. This is just I love it. It would just be very like no matter what the result is, the actual the project is very interesting. Like even if it just becomes like a clone, you know, of something that already exists, like that's just kind of like okay, this is the end state. This is kind of funny. I'll
bet you someone with a little more programming skill than me could probably answer this question quickly, but I did wonder what happens if you started with like 2 separate seeds, right? Generate 2 random 360 card lists, and then just had Cube Cobra do 360 swaps. And like where would those land on the cube map relative to one another? Exactly.
Like I was thinking of like, oh, you have the starting point again, you could just run it back again, but if you do 2 simultaneously, that could be I mean, they're both kind of like it's the same thing, but like it's perhaps more fun to track them simultaneously. Wow. Look at all these nice cards they're cutting. It's so interesting because it's like At what point are they recommending cards that'll then spiral out into other card trees and I don't know. That's so much back end for me to even comprehend. I'm not.
Yeah, so an example, like I was like, what do I do to give the colors like some kind of identity, personality, something, right? And so for a while, like I saw some potential for like I don't know, go wide and white or something. That's a commonly done, archetype. And so I was looking, and what was it? I added Usher of the Fallen. I'd added Usher of the Fallen, right? Because it's 1 mana 2/1, perfect. You can like support White Weenie, makes more dudes, great. And I was like, perfect. And I saw it like on the chopping block, 4 or 5 down. I was like, doesn't like it. It's only a number of days before it's gone. So I like poked around. I was like, cards most commonly drafted with Usher of the Fallen, right? and it was like seasoned hollow blade #1. So I slotted it in there. Next day, it kicked out seasoned hollow blade. Next day, Usher the Fallen.
What? Come on.
To the top.
Come on. You're on to me.
That's when I knew I was in trouble.
Yeah, you're on to me. You're too on to me.
You can't reason with it. It's just it.
Oh my god. I love that. This is a really
There's no negotiating.
No, there's no negotiating. Wow, that's pretty cool. Using AI to make this happen. Wow, yeah, I'm definitely going to follow that. Just let me know, and I will happily do a swap. We'll talk about it.
Awesome.
Sick. All right, well, we've been live for a little over 2 hours, so I think we're good, unless you're good.
Great.
Yeah, this is great. This is really great. Okay, so you already said it in the beginning. So we know where to find you. You're on Twitter. You're on Discord. I'm also on both of those places. This will go up to YouTube tomorrow, so we'll have a link that you can retweet and post there. Yeah, and we're good. I think this is my last one before CubeCon.
Wow.
Because next week I'm going to LA, and then the following week I go to Madison. It's coming up real soon.
That's so exciting.
Yeah, I know. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be great. Yeah. Okay. So, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. I thought this was a fantastic conversation. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Thanks for the what you do for the Magic community. I like your work.
Thank you. I wasn't expecting that. Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. All right, we're gonna sign off.